time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur podcast. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Jeanette Anderson, and today I have the really fascinating Jennifer Takagi with me. And I know I say all my guests are fabulous, but that's because A, I choose fabulous people, but B, because they are doing interesting things in the world. That's why I bring them to you. And so today we are going to talk with Jennifer about a new way to think about how you get shit done, basically, how you are productive and how you can create amazing things in 12 minutes at a time. So we're going to talk about that and other things. Welcome, Jennifer. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And so tell people where you're calling in from, where you're from.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And for those of you who are not from this area, I'm about 4 hours north of Dallas, Texas. So I was at a restaurant bar one time on a business trip, and I was in the US, but there were 3 or 4 of us that got to visiting over dinner, sitting at the bar. And we only knew our row of states. And so it was like, this woman goes, I'm from such and such. And here's, and it was a funny conversation, but we don't always know where everything is. And in Canada, I'm always asking, okay, is that East Coast, West Coast, or are we in the middle? Like, where are we?
Yeah, exactly. Most Americans don't know anything about Canada. Most Canadians know all about the States because, of course, we get taught that in school. You guys do not get taught about Canada in school.
We
But
don't necessarily get taught about America either.
yeah,
So
or America. That's true. That's true. I have heard that. All right. So I'm going to tell you the official background of Jennifer. Then we're going to get some of the juicy tidbits behind the scenes. And then we're going to launch into our topic about creating 12-minute success. All right. So Jennifer Takagi is renowned as the 12-minute success coach. She's revolutionized the way we approach goal setting and achievement. With a unique blend of intuitive insights and practical strategies, she empowers individuals to unlock their full potential in just 12-minute increments. Jennifer's transformative approach has garnered acclaim from entrepreneurs to corporate professionals, proving that success is not just about the hours you put in, but the quality of those minutes. A passionate advocate for continuous growth, Jennifer's teachings resonate with all who seek to elevate their lives and careers. As we embark on this enlightening journey together today, let's open our minds and hearts to the wisdom and insights of the remarkable Jennifer Takagi. So, hi.
hi.
All right. So, we were just trying to figure out where we know each other from because a lot of times I get people booked on here, and we may have met before, we may not have, but Jennifer and I met on the Marketers Cruise. I think that's where we first met in person for sure, this past year, which is a big cruise of about 400. I think last year was 450 marketers from around the world that go on a cruise and network and schmooze for 8 days. And you might think that that sounds like a really oh yeah, right, it's work and roll your eyes, but oh my God, I never work harder than on that stupid cruise. It's long days. They start networking at 11 o'clock at night and go till 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever your stamina can afford. So it's it can be beneficial, but like any networking, it depends on your follow-up and where you're at with your business. So that's where we first met. Then we've met throughout it's a very incestuous little community and world, this online expertpreneur industry. And so you're bound to run into each other here, there, and everywhere. So welcome again. And tell me a little bit about you that we would never guess, or maybe even your friends don't know, but something, because we look at you and you look, super sweet and professional, and what's something that most people would not guess about you?
Well, most people don't know. I talk about it some, but I think they just don't believe me. I went to college, I think in Canada, it's university in Mexico, Spain, and France. And I graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a degree in French and Spanish.
Oh.
And most people are like, wait, what? Like, why did you do that? And because I wanted to, and it worked out. And
Well, and why did you do that? What is it about languages that had you go and do all that work?
well, it started with my high school Spanish teacher, and um, as a senior, a lot of times we end up having enough credits and we end up with like a break. And so we end up being a teacher's assistant. And my Spanish teacher, I was an assistant 1 hour and in her class the next, or vice versa. And we became really good friends. I was 18, she was 32. So we weren't that far apart in age. And one day when I was there for her to be the student assistant, I said, man, I'm going to go to college in the fall, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm majoring in. And so she just very casually, well, do you like this? Do you like that? And of course, in high school, you're so done and over it. You're like, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And she, she looked at me and she said, you've taken 2 years of French, a year of Latin, and now a year of Spanish. Do you think you like languages? And I was like, yes, I think I do. So that's kind of how that initially started. And shortly after that, she received a card in the mail, a postcard, and it was addressed to the language teachers. And it said, if you have a student who would be interested in going to school in Mexico, fill this, give it to the student, but don't fill it out for yourself. This is for the students, not the teachers. So she asked me if I would fill it out and then bring her whatever came. Sure, no problem. So I filled it out, off it went. And I got home from school one day and I had an after school job. And my mom said, hey, there's a package for you, a big envelope in the entryway. Go get that and tell me what it is. Which, knowing my mom, was surprised she didn't just open it, but I got it and opened it up and I said, oh, that's about a summer school program in Mexico, but it's for my Spanish teacher. So I'll just take it to school tomorrow. Well, her best friend was there, and her best friend's husband had invented something in the oil industry and became a multimillionaire overnight. And they they retired early and they traveled the world. And so they were talking, and Dolores Ann said, we go everywhere and we can't speak the language at all. Like we struggle with saying hola in Mexico. Like we, if Jennifer likes languages, you should really support that.
Hmm.
So my mom went through the whole thing while I was at school or at work that night. And I got home and she said, you need to go sign that application that's on the kitchen table. You're going to Mexico this summer. And I went, I have an after school job. I have a boyfriend. Like, no, I'm not going. And she goes, I already filled out all the paperwork and attached the check, sign the papers and go. And I was the youngest of four. So there was a little bit more disposable income than had been previously. So I got 3 weeks after graduation, I went to school in Mexico and came back. But my Spanish teacher said, go to the counselor's office, get the form, because I was going to go to one school. And she was like, you can't go there. You have to go to the other one because we have two state schools, big rivalry. So I went down there and went to school, and I always wanted to go someplace else.
Yeah.
But it's all about a guy, isn't it? A guy, like you choose choices based on who you date. So I was dating a guy, and I really liked him a lot. We would have never made it long term, but he was very exotic at the time.
Yes.
And he came in and he goes, I'm so excited I got niece. And I said, I don't even know what that means. And he said, I'm gonna do a language exchange program and I'm going to France for a year and I'm gonna teach English as a second language.
So you
And I
ended
was
up
like,
there
oh,
because of the guy.
yeah. And I went, wait, you're leaving me? I didn't say that out loud, but in my head I did. So he left. That was that. And but when I found out he was leaving me, I thought I should go somewhere.
There you
And
go.
OU had a program in Mexico, different location than I had gone before. So I started saving my money left and right. And my little savings passbook back in the day you carried in your purse fell on the table. My dad picked it up, and I had saved a lot of money working 20 hours a week part-time and paying part of my expenses. I had saved
Wow.
and my mom goes, "What are you doing with that?" And I said, "I'm going to go back to school in Mexico. I'm going to a different program." And about 3 months later, she called and she goes, "I don't want you going to Mexico. I found you a school in Spain." And I went, "All righty then, let's do
So,
it."
so you ended up going to all these different countries and studying, partially because of boys and men, and partially parents and a teacher and all of these influences. Did you ever go into languages as a career?
No, because I just thought I worked at the history of science collections at the University of Oklahoma at the library all through college. And I was around all these eccentric professors, like, who studies the history of science? Like, what job do you get with that? And
Right.
they're like, "Jennifer, everybody will want to hire you because if you can learn languages, you can learn anything. So
Okay.
you'll just get a job anywhere."
That's
Well,
an interesting perspective. Was that true?
I mean, I made it true, but I graduated in 1985.
Yeah.
I live in Oklahoma City, and the Penn Square Bank failure was the start of the savings and loan collapse in the US. And that's literally 3 miles from my house.
Right.
And so there weren't many jobs, and it was hard. It was a lot. But my dad worked for the federal government. And so he brought me an application for a temporary job and as a secretary type position. Well, actually, it was below a secretary. And I took it. But the work I did there, I ended up getting on with a mortgage company and went into mortgage banking, and then went back to the federal government and was there for the next 26 years.
Oh my goodness. So we
No, I don't use my languages at all.
okay. And so have you traveled much and used them, or is it mostly just been that little part of your life?
Well, it comes up a lot. I'm an avid reader, and you're reading a book, and just out of the clear blue, they're in Paris or Mexico or Spain, and they throw in sentences in another language. So it's like, and most of the time with that, I
Yeah.
know exactly what they're saying. So I do travel to Mexico quite a bit because it's close.
Yeah.
I've only been back to France twice
Okay.
then. And I'm getting ready to go to Spain for a month in October. So we'll
Nice.
see. We'll see how that goes.
That
But
sounds
I
fun.
don't use it much, but it comes up, or in a movie, they'll
Yeah.
throw stuff out there, and I'll look at my husband and I'll translate what they said. So hit and miss, hit and miss.
Well, so it obviously taught you how to learn, and that's good as well. So you were in a job for a long time, and then you ended up starting your own business. How did that come about?
I always loved teaching. And like, as a little girl, I had my little stuffed animals lined up in my dolls, and I told them what to do and how to do it. And I was an excellent teacher when I was 4. And so I just always loved teaching, and it just came very naturally how to show people how to do stuff. And it was many years before it dawned on me in school. When I was at the university, I did a lot of tutoring because French and Spanish have a very similar sentence structure, but it's different from English. And people were failing because they didn't have the sentence structure. And
Mhm.
I never got paid for it, but I would, "Oh, well, let me help you with that," because it came very naturally to me. I think we have just innate abilities to do things. So I was always really good at sharing. And in my career, every job I ever had, I ended up doing a lot of training. And sometimes I was recruited to do it, and other times I volunteered. But one one very pivotal event, I was asked to go to Washington, D.C. for a week to fill in for one of my counterparts. I didn't know why I was going, but it didn't matter. It was Washington, D.C., and I love to eat my way through the city.
Mhm.
So I said yes. And I got there, and what I had signed up for was 9 months of being part of this program, which was not quite what I had in mind, but I did it. And at the very beginning, the first day, when I kind of figured out why I was there, I was like a coach person for a team I was given. And it's right after lunch. A woman walks out, and she's 5 foot nothing in 4-inch pumps. I swear her suit had to have been $2,000 and custom made.
Mm.
Her hair was up in a updo bun, perfectly coiffed and hairsprayed, perfect makeup. We're in a ballroom. There are like 80 participants there in the round tables, and she walks in the middle of the room and she has a microphone and she holds it up and she says, "Hello, my name is Karen." And I thought, I can't even hear her. Like, what? There was no excitement, there was no enthusiasm. And that night, a group of us went out to dinner, and I didn't know any of these people. And I got to talking to the gal next to me because that's really hard for me to do, not at all. And I said, "Man, if you give me a microphone and the book the night before, I could have crushed that. That could have been so much fun."
Yeah.
So 9 months later, we're at the end of the program and we have a big graduation for them, not me, for the participants. And I had never spoken to the head person of this team. And I went up to him at a break and I was like, "Hey, I'm Jennifer Takagi, by the way." And he was like, "Yeah, Jennifer, I know who you are." And I thought, "Yeah, you haven't spoken to me in 9 months, but okay, hello." And I said, "Hey, I'm reading through the bio book, and that woman," I didn't tell him how bad she was, but that woman, she has a PhD in psychology. And you and some other people have coach by your name. Do I have to go get a PhD to be a coach? I think I could do that." And he goes, "Oh, no, no, you just need to find a program." And I was like, "Okay." So after I left the government, I found a paper inside a notebook that they were not related. And it said 3 to 5, camera froze. It said 3 to 5 year goals.
Yeah.
Retire in 5 years,
Yeah.
which I was too young. Retire in 5 years. The 3 year goal was take 3 classes to become a coach, because I didn't know what all you had to do. Read 3 books on being a coach, and then a third thing,
Yeah.
and just stuck it in there. Well, I wasn't allowed to retire. I was too young. And I had to go to LA for a meeting. And I was on the plane coming home and flew to Dallas and then flew home. And I got to talking to the gal next to me. Surprise. I talked to the gal next to me. And she said, "If you could do anything, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, when I grow up and retire, so I have health insurance, which in the US is a big deal.
Mhm.
When I grow up and retire and have health insurance, I want to be a coach and a trainer because I'm really good at it." And she said, "Well, you've put it in the universe and it will happen. And
And
doors will open and you'll say no, but another door will open and another door will open." I thought this girl was airy fairy nuts and berries. I just went, "Okay, okay." So a
that's a
few,
new phrase for me, airy fairy nuts and berries. Okay,
yeah,
let's cut to the end of the story here. How long ago was this?
I don't know. That was 12, 15 years ago. But
Okay.
then shortly after that, when she said doors would open, they asked me to travel for a solid year training coast to coast all over the US on
Okay.
a new way of doing business. So then I had a lot of practice.
So you ended up in your job doing a lot of training and some coaching. When did you end up shifting into your own business? How long ago was that?
Well, I did that training for a year.
Yeah.
I got back to the office on Friday. I found out the next Monday I had been training the country so they could do a massive reorganization and I could resign or I could relocate.
Hmm. Yeah.
And thank goodness they let me have a retirement package because I was too young. But so those 5 or 7 years from when I met that woman, from when I had been to DC at that meeting, all of that led up to I can walk away. So at this moment, on July 31st, 2024, it was 10 years since I retired.
Okay, so you retired 10 years ago, and how long ago did you start your business? Because I want to get to your stuff about your teaching and what you teach. So how long
Months
did you
later,
start your business?
a month later, I got a phone call and they said, "Hey, would you come to Fort Worth and train all day?"
Yeah.
And that That was it. And so pluses, minuses, benefits, no benefits. I mean, it just was up and down. And I was at a conference and I met Jack Canfield. And he is the guy who founded the Chicken Soup for the Souls and the Success Principles. And the first principle, and I took his course because like I get every certification I can. Not that I really want the certification, but I want the training. Like I love it. And the first chapter was take 100% responsibility for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, I do. And then I thought, oh no, if you're late somewhere, you didn't take responsibility. You should have left earlier. You should have planned. You should have looked at the map. You should have seen what the traffic was going to be, right?
Yep.
But if you can't take 100%, take 5% more.
Okay.
I got obsessed. What is 5%? I agreed to speak at an association luncheon
Mm-hmm.
on this topic, but I didn't know what 5% was. So how do you teach something you don't know? So I was just obsessed. And then it just kind of came to me how those things do. And it was like, when I worked full time and I got home at the end of the night, I had from 6 to 10 in the evening to do whatever I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I didn't have children. So by the time we had dinner figured out, by 6 o'clock, I could do whatever I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I could decide to get fit and I could go work out. I could meal prep. I could meal plan. I could watch TV. I could read. And as I started thinking about that, I got my calculator out because one of my goals at college was graduate without a math class, but I can use a calculator. And 4 hours is 240 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
5% of 240 is 12.
Ah,
So
okay.
what can you do in 12-minute increments to
Okay.
move closer to your goal?
So this is where the 12 minutes came from. Okay. So from doing that teaching, you came up with this 12-minute segments of time. And so then that became part of what you incorporated into your training and your coaching work. So you kind of started 10 years ago, but you really shifted your business about 3 years ago, right?
Yes, 3 years ago, I actually got into energy healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because I do energy sessions in like 12 minutes because it's fast, it's easy. You don't have to relive trauma. So it's very quick. And so I was at an event and somebody goes, oh my gosh, you're the 12-minute success coach. And I was like, I will own that. And so I help people take their big, amazing dream and break it down because typically we don't fulfill our big dreams because they're too big. We
Yeah.
don't know what to do next. And so I seem to have a pretty good ability to break it down like what's the next little baby step? And it's very interesting once somebody gets started,
Yeah.
they can take off and you can do just about anything for 12 minutes.
Exactly. So how did you so the 12-minute idea is basically you take a 12-minute chunk and you work on one thing for that period, right?
Yes.
Then what? Then what do you do? Or then what happens? Do you pick the next thing for 12 minutes or do you change something altogether or do you work on that more for 12 more minutes? What do you
Yep.
do? Yeah.
Depends on what it is. So Frank King is a very sought after keynote speaker, and he heard me speak on this. So he got an egg timer. It was very cute the way he told the story. He got an egg timer.
Yep.
And with his egg timer, he set it for 12 minutes.
Yep.
And working from home, he had various tasks he needed to do. And he and his wife had lots of animals, dogs and cats, and I don't know what all. But he had different things he needed to do, but he would get sidetracked and scattered and not really get them done. So he made a list of the type, not necessarily what it was, but the types of activities he needed to do. He set his egg timer for 12 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and only did that one thing. And
Okay.
he went through his like 5 or 6 things, just one right after the other, shifting from one to the next. And then he started back. And
Okay.
he said, man, in about an hour and a half, I got more done than I typically get done in a whole day
Right.
because he was laser focused on that one thing for 12 minutes. No distractions, no phones, no nothing.
Right.
So a lot of research out there. and I do not dispute it whatsoever, that if you switch tasks and come back,
Mm-hmm.
that it's harder on your brain to get back in it.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're in a block of time. So, like if you're in a 50-minute block of time,
Mm-hmm.
if you promise yourself the one thing you don't really want to do, I'm going to work on this for 12 minutes, then you can congratulate yourself and move on to something else.
Right.
Some people, like in an office setting, they will do, I'm going to work on cleaning out my inbox the first 12 minutes of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, it's like, I'm going to do another 12 minutes to organize this inbox. And before they know it, in 4 or 5 days, they've got their inbox cleared out. So whether it's virtual or um, physical. So it depends on what you're working on, how you do it. But I got a call from someone who said, I'm at the gym and I did what you said. I spent 12 minutes getting my clothes together 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally decided today was the day and I was going to put the clothes on and drive to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I got here and I sat in my car and thought, I don't want to go in. And I thought, well, I'm here in my clothes. I'm going to go do the elliptical for 12 minutes and then I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up being on it for an hour because every time she looked down, she was at 15 minutes. Well, I can go a little further. Well, now she's at 24 minutes. I can go a little further. So once you get started, it really can build momentum. You can either stop at 12 minutes or keep going.
Okay. And so what's the um process for chunking things down that you use? Because 12 minutes is a fairly small bite-sized piece. So you mentioned, because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed and they have these big visions, like you mentioned. They have big dreams. I know I have a big dream, and constantly people are telling me, that's a lot. How are you going to do all that? Well, a lot of it is breaking it down. What's a simple process that you use to help people figure out how to break down those big goals?
So let's talk about writing a book. A
Okay.
lot of entrepreneurs want to write a book,
Mm-hmm.
but that can be overwhelming. So I was speaking with a gentleman and he goes, okay, so what do? I set aside 12 minutes. I don't have any ideas. I just stare at my computer for 12 minutes and say, yay, I put my time in. And I said, well, not exactly. I said, so your first 12 minutes could be making a list of all the topics you could possibly write about.
Mm-hmm.
If you're done, you're done. Move on with the rest of your day. The next day you come back, you look at the list and you break it down to 10 things you could talk about instead of the 45 or whatever.
Right.
And each time you just chunk it down till you get one. It's not that you're not eventually going to write about all those things, but you got to pick one. Sometimes deciding is the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
I heard recently that if you have a list like that, if you turn it over, close your eyes for 30 seconds, turn it back over, let your eyes fall to the paper, it will go to what's most important. Your subconscious mind will like lead your eyes to where you need to be. I haven't tested that out much, but it sounds like a great theory. But so now you have your topic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you write a book, you have to include stories. So your next 12 minutes could be, what stories could I tell? And you just jot down something that would remind you of the story.
Yep.
What stories could I tell to support this topic?
Yes.
Okay, so you jot some down. Then the next one is, okay, I'm going to pick one of those stories and I'm going to type the whole story out.
Right.
So you're getting momentum. And some days you get on a roll and your 12 minutes turns into 2 hours.
Yeah.
And other days you're like, only this. But you kind of need to decide what you could possibly do in 12 minutes to move you forward. But what we often do is we think, I need to write a whole chapter.
Right.
I need to write 200 words. Yes, at some point you're going to have to, but you have to get started. And so making it small. One person's office was a mess, and
Mm-hmm.
she heard me speak and she thought, this is a bunch of crap. You're not going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But she decided to give it a try and she started in one corner of her office. And I've often heard if you work clockwise, that's better. I don't know why, but they say if you do, it is. So
Interesting.
she picked this one little corner
Mm-hmm.
and she set her timer on her phone and she organized that one little corner.
Mm-hmm.
The next day when she walked in her office, she was like, that corner looks good. I'm going to do 12 minutes on the next corner.
Mm,
And the last time I talked to her, one whole wall had been completely reorganized and looked great. And she was just doing it 12 minutes at a time.
right.
Your garage is a nightmare. Yours may not be, mine is.
Yeah.
I started going out there and I would spend 12 minutes loading up the stuff. We have a place where we can take like cans of paint and those toxic deals where they're appropriately handled. And it was like, I'd set my timer for 12 minutes. I'd fill up a box, get it in the car, and just drive it straight there. And
Yes.
they're like, hi, it's you again. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. But I just did little bits at a time. And I don't believe we have one can of paint in our garage. We used to have rent houses, and my husband kept every can of paint, no matter how much or how little was in there. But you have to make it small,
Right.
and you have to believe that with little steps, you're going to make huge changes.
All right. So, what do you think has been for you one of the biggest challenges in getting your business going? What was one of the hardest parts? Because how old were you when you started your business?
51.
51. Okay. And this relaunched 3 years ago. You were 60 or 57, something like that. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So a little older. And so what's been one of the bigger challenges for you in terms of your business, especially lately?
I did not know what a business coach was or a coach at all, other than like I had heard of at work in that one project. And I ended up I've hired lots of coaches.
Hmm.
And to be fair, I've learned something from all of them.
Hmm.
But on more than one occasion, I hired a coach that basically pushed their vision
Hmm.
of what I could be onto me,
Yeah.
and it didn't work out
Yeah.
at all. And it didn't work out because it really wasn't my purpose and why I should be here and do what I'm doing. And so the hardest part was being able to discern, is it for me? Is it not for me?
Yeah.
And I found that to be the hardest part.
Yes, absolutely. I actually wrote an ebook about how to choose the right business coach for you because
Ooh.
in this industry, there is such a challenge with I'm going to go on my little rant right now. There's people at the top of the mountain selling leveraging solutions to people who are coming up the mountain, and those leveraging solutions, like create a 3-day event, or write a book, or become a speaker, or have an online program, etc., do work at the top of the mountain when you have a list of 40,000 and infrastructure and team and technology and so forth. And so, yes, you can make money using those techniques there, but they don't work for everyone. Like you said, it's not everyone's style or direction. That model, that approach, that way of marketing, that vehicle for leverage might not be right for everyone, is not right for everyone. And it may not be the stage of business that they're at, because most of the people who are buying those leveraging programs, they're not ready yet. They're not at that stage, both in terms of their internal context, I call it, and their external capability. And so they end up spending tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on things that don't get them ROI. Makes me absolutely livid. I hear all the time, man, I wish I'd met you $50,000 ago. And which just literally makes me cry every time I hear it. And I hear it a lot. Um, and so my encouragement, ladies and gentlemen, is you're listening to this, is listen to Jennifer's point about be very discerning about the coach you're working with, be very clear with them, ask them, do you have a particular approach or methodology or model that you teach, and is that going to work for you? You may not know, but be really clear that you need to find a coach who's willing to work with you based on what works for you, not what their process or widget or model is, etc. Yeah, so that's one of my biggest frustrations with this industry, the coaching expertpreneur world, is a lot of wasted time, energy, and money, and therefore people end up thinking it's their fault, and it's really not. So thank you for bringing that up so that I could rant about that. And so one of the biggest challenges for you has been finding the right person and learning the discernment of what's going to support you and what's not. What is your approach that works for you and what's not? What's been one of the biggest surprises for you in terms of what has worked? What's been something that you wouldn't have guessed or expected that's worked for you?
Well, I was in a mastermind and a spiritual healer came in to speak. I didn't know what that was. And then she offered a free session, and I got my free session, and then I worked with her for months, and it was transformational. It was amazing and spectacular. And we're coming towards the end of our time together, and I met a woman who read Akashic Records, which those are the messages on your soul, and anybody can access them. But this woman read my records, gave me the most beautiful reading, and then she said, I'm doing a program in the spring. This was in the fall. If you want to join. And I was like, yeah, here's my credit card. I want to learn to do this. But it was only for me. I never planned to do it with anybody else. It was just something I wanted to learn to do. So I go through her program, and at the end, I get an email that says, congratulations, you're a certified soul care coach. And I
Mm.
was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing. Well, I was in a paid women's networking group,
Yeah.
and I put in the group, hey, I'm a certified soul care coach. I can read Akashic records. I will give away 5 spots. Who wants them? That offer was taken up in like an hour.
Hmm.
Nothing I had ever put out on leadership development, behavioral styles, change management, nothing. Nobody ever took anything, paid or free, ever.
Okay.
The first one I read, at the end of the session, she said, that was amazing. May I write you a testimonial?
Mm. Nice.
And that put me on this spiritual journey to learn more. And so now the majority of my work for the last 3 years has been energy healing for people, physically, emotionally, and spiritual healings. And I have multiple modalities that I use doing that. And I'm also a certified high performance coach through Brendan Burchard and his amazing framework, which is really great and it works really well. But now I can bring all that together in my one-on. I have a group program going right now, but also one-on-one, because through my healing and spiritual modalities, I can help you actually verbalize what it is you want to do, how you want to show up. And then we can start breaking that down into the 12-minute increments and clear the blocks that are keeping you from doing the thing. Because if your coach is telling you to do something and you're not, there's a block. Is the block because you're like not ready to do that, or is it because it's not for you? And we can get to the bottom of that so that you can step into what you're truly meant to do and your purpose. So if anybody had ever asked me, as a matter of fact, a friend from high school said, of all the people we graduated with, you're the last one I would have thought would have been airy fairy woo person. And I was like, yeah, me too. Who knew this would be my life? But it's, it gives me so much joy to have somebody call me 3 days later and say my eczema is gone. Perfect. I'm happy I could help. Right. So it's all those kinds of things that bring me so much joy and I like so much. And the 12 minutes to success, people are able to get things done. And it seems little to start, but it's powerful.
Okay. Well, let's tell people where they can find out how to connect with you. How do they reach out to find out more about either the Akashic readings and the energy healing or the 12-minute success coaching? Where do they find you?
Right. So my gift is 12minutegift.com. And that's a 3-part audio series to help you get your life mapped out on what you want it to be. So it shows up how you want. So 12minutegift.com. And my website is jennifertakagi.com.
Okay, so spell out Takagi.
Yes, Takagi.
Yes. Okay. So jennifertakagi.com.
Mhm.
So, and they can book calls with you there, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there's a lot of maturepreneurs who are um, trying to find their purpose and their passion right now, who are thinking about either getting going or working on keeping going. And so, in terms of some of the practicalities, folks, if you're listening to this, try out the 12-minute windows of just breaking things down into smaller, more manageable bite-sized pieces. By the way, there's online Pomodoro timers that you can use to help you with that. Just search the word Pomodoro, Pomordo, I believe. You can do those with other people. So have a co-working session where there's someone on the other side of Zoom and you both do your 12 minutes and then you check in, or you can just do it yourself if you are one of the people who will actually do it. If not, you probably need some accountability with a coach like Jennifer. And also taking a look at, the spiritual side of things and or the internal game of business is important as well. So if you're one of those people who's looking for a way to figure out what's next, practically speaking, or what's next for you in terms of purpose as well, then reach out and get some support. It is such a tough thing for us to see for ourselves because it's right there on the end of our nose. We can't see it. I have two coaches because even though I've been coaching for 40 years, I have two coaches because I can't see what I was right on the end of my nose. I can see what's on the end of your nose. That's why it's helpful to have a coach, is that they can see that. It's like the, label on the picker jar. If we're inside the jar, we can't see the label. So get a coach, get support for your next step and stage, or for clarifying what is right for you. And like we said earlier, make sure that that coach is someone who will work with you on what works for you. So you can reach out to Jennifer at jennifertakagi.com. You can also go and get her gift, which is 12minutegift.com. So that three audio, but don't go get it and then don't listen to it. Just go listen to it. Actually do the thing when you download stuff. Because I know you, I see you, I hear you, I know that you go and download a ton of stuff and then you don't do anything with it. Because I know that because I do that too. Because I have a folder full of other people's lead magnets and gifts and so forth that I have never looked at. So go listen to it. And if you are interested in support on what your next step is in terms of really figuring out your why, you can also reach out to me for currently a complimentary why session. These why whisper what's my why sessions are going to be charged for in the near future, so you want to reach out. We'll put a link for that into the chat. And one last thing, ladies and gentlemen, get a community, get support. It is, Jennifer mentioned many different coaches, many different programs, many different communities. And it really sounds like, Jennifer, that's been very beneficial in your process and in your journey.
Absolutely.
Even from the very beginning, your, Spanish teacher and parents and family members and friends played an integral part in your path and your journey. And so we need community to support us. So please do go and check the Maturepreneur Maturepreneur.world for the network, which is an awesome community of people who are 55 plus and hashtag not done by a long shot. You need community of people who get you, support you, encourage you, lift you up, educate you, inspire you, and are willing to also call you on your stuff so that you can move forward. So please come and join us. And also reach out to Jennifer to get some one-on-one love and support. So Jennifer, what's one last piece of advice you'd give to anybody who's thinking about making the leap into entrepreneurship? Like take yourself back 10 years ago when you were leaving a government job. I imagine you were probably a little trepidatious about becoming an entrepreneur because you never had been. What did you need? What supported you in making that leap? And what would you advise people get or do to be able to make their leap?
Well, my mom was just the queen of being supportive. I don't think she had much self-confidence, but she wanted all of us to have a lot of self-confidence. And through my journey, I just truly believe and embrace that we are all destined for success, and we're destined for more success than we have. So
Mm,
if you can just remember that you have a message, you have a gift,
mm.
and you need to share it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the reminder. Please take that to heart, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for being here and for being the difference that only you can be, my friends. Bye for now. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.